It's fiction Chad here, Wasp my friend, like I have no enemies, so we all are kinder and good people. But what if Naruto wasn't good at all and destroy everything? So yeah, in this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto destroyed the council and become international enemy? This is part 1, and if you want more then please leave a like, share and subscribe. Lol, it was odd start, but yeah, let's go. The Yondaime Hokage had sacrificed his life to save the village and people he loved the day before. The entire village was in mourning for the loss of their leader and the many loved ones lost in the battle with a 9-tailed demon fox that attacked with little warning. The survivors of that tragic night gathered around the Hokage Tower to hear the message of their new leader, the Yondaime's predecessor, the Sandaime Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen. The sage old man thought one last time over what he was about to do. He had spent the majority of the night in meetings over the future of the village that was calling on his leadership once more. Now he found himself seconds away from making a day-old baby either the most beloved figure in the quaint but powerful village of Konohagakure or the most hated. However, a key piece of information would be withheld from everyone at the request of the Yondaime. That request was that no one find out it was his child he used to seal the demon in to save the village. Hiruzen had stayed up all night debating both Minato's motives for such a request and the merits of it. In the end he made the decision to honor the man's last request and trust in the village they both loved. He stepped out onto the balcony and looked out at the large gathering of civilians and shinobi. He calmly stood as the chatter stopped and all eyes focused on him. Most found it odd that he was holding what looked to be a newborn child in his arms. I would like to thank everyone for taking the time to be here today. As you know, the Yondaime in the battle against the QB no Kitsune sacrificed his life to protect us all. Many heads dropped at this and there was a palpable sense of depression throughout those gathered. The council has seen fit to allow me the honor of taking over for my successor and leading this village once again. At this a small cheer went up and the sadness seemed to lift a little. As tragic and terrible as last night was, I know that the will of fire that burns within every citizen of Konoha will burn brightly once again. At this more cheers went up and smiles could be seen if only briefly. I have one last piece of business and that is to introduce an important piece of the Yondaime's victory over the QB. At this everyone looks to see the Sandaime holding up a baby that looks to have blue eyes and thin wisps of blonde hair with 3 faint whisker marks on each of its chubby cheeks. This child born amidst the destruction and ruin that befell our village was used by the Yondaime at the cost of his own life to seal away the demon's terrible power. It is by this young one's very will its life that QB will never return to harm this village or those within it ever again. The aged Hokage stood their arms out holding the baby above the railing of the balcony, waiting for a positive reaction. Unfortunately, after a few seconds of silence, someone in the crowd threw a rock nearly hitting the child and the Hokage who sensed the attack and moved to protect him. That was all it took and suddenly the crowd turned violent. Hiruzen immediately went back into his office where he got the message out to his loyal Anbu to stand down and hide until this blew over or they wore themselves out. As the Anbu and his loyal guards moved out, he erected a powerful barrier that even the Anbu who were trying to kill the child couldn't break. It was 3 long days before the Hokage deactivated the barrier after recalling those he sent into hiding. They took care of the few remaining villagers and shinobi who refused to leave. However, that would only serve as the beginning of Naruto's tormented youth. 7-year-old Naruto Uzumaki had just been released from the hospital after another attack on his person by a group of villagers and shinobi. It was a beautiful and bright Thursday morning, but he wasn't happy like the few people out that hour as he was walking home. He was angry and fed up with everything and everyone save too. It seemed like no one would protect him and no matter what he said his persecutors got off without as much as a word said against them. The shinobi side wouldn't vouch for him even if they came upon the attack just in time to shoo off the attackers before they put in the finishing blow and of course none of the civilians would speak up, even those that pitied or liked the blonde child. It's always been like this even since before the orphanage kicked him out at age 4. Of course he wasn't any safer there. He didn't receive any serious beatings or stabbings there but they still tried to kill him. They'd just try to starve him or when they did feed him poison him. In trying to be sneaky they only managed to drag things out long enough that the Hokage eventually got around to saving him. To his fractured 7-year-old mind the Hokage was the worst of them all. He could step in and do something about what was happening but he only arrived on the scene just in time to prolong his suffering. The few times he had decided to protect himself it was him who got in trouble and not the people who day after day tried to kill him or make him suffer through some other type of abuse. Naruto figured he had been beaten over 500 times in his life, stabbed over 200 times, poisoned over 100 times, nearly starved to death 40 times, mauled by the Inuzaka dogs 27 times, raped by men and women 20 different times by too many people to count, electrocuted 10 times, nearly drowned 5 times, including a few where he was legally pronounced dead before he revived, lit on fire a few times, and there were more attempts on his life than he'd been beaten. He had even been used as a toilet by some particularly sick fucks. During all of that he figured only 10 people had ever faced actual charges and been jailed. Of course those were during times the mob got bored with him and turned their rage on someone else who most likely got too close to the mob while cheering on their actions. So you might ask why a boy who despite a few pranks and all that's happened to him in his short life most would see as bright, caring, and innocent, even if he was a little dense, was suddenly feeling like destroying the whole village. It would have to do with a certain purple-haired Kunoichi who had befriended him a few months before this last attack against him. They had bonded over stories of past abuse by the villagers and others. It started early on the morning of his 7th birthday. The villagers were getting ready for the festival that would be held later in the day, celebrating the Yondium's victory of the QB. The woman who he was starting to see in an older sister fashion or perhaps even mother for his desperate wanting of a family offered to, in her words, give him a birthday he'd never forget. Naruto woke up early despite hating to do so as he knew the purple-haired woman was the same way, yet she was doing all this so he could have a good birthday for a change. It had truly been a great day as she took him shopping and bought him a few things. He would later look back as thinking that should have tipped him off as they went to shops where just a few days ago he was beaten and chazzed off from for merely stepping on the sidewalk in front of their shop. They went to eat and played games after. She even bought him a set of kunai and shuriken, saying she believed in his dream of being Hokage and wanted to start him off right. He was having such a good time with his Nai-san that he lost all track of time. It wasn't until he heard the fireworks begin to go off that he realized it was nighttime. Immediately on guard and feeling sleepy from being out all day, Naruto decided to call it a night. The woman picked him up easily and put him on her back with his arms around her neck. He'd always wanted to do this, and now he was, but he felt so tired. She assured him he could rest and that he'd be safe in bed before he knew it. Unfortunately, when he awoke later he found himself on the street in the middle of a dark alley with his One-chan nowhere in sight. However, upon clearing his eyes and looking he saw he wasn't alone as villagers and shinobi with murderous looks in their eyes began to move towards him from all directions, cutting off any chances of escape. Naruto cried out for the purple-haired woman, only to receive no response, only the cackles of laughter by the growing crowd as they started to mercilessly beat down upon him until he looked dead. Even with his unnatural healing rate, it would be almost a month before he was released from the hospital, cursing the weakness that put him in that situation. It all served to point out how alone he was. That there were few people if any he could trust. There were 2 people he could count on through it all, and that kept him from ending his life on his own terms, but he didn't want to be a burden on them. He knew despite the awesomeness that was Ichiraku Ramen they were not making much money because people knew they served him and were nice to him. He figured it would only get worse if nothing changed. The only hope he had was that soon he would be allowed to train at the academy. He had no wish to be a ninja and become a tool for those who have made his life hell. Still, he needed to be able to protect himself and knew that was the place to learn. The only problem was he needed training now, but he knew no one would even let him look at a single scroll on even civilian-level defense tactics. Honestly, he wasn't much more hopeful about how he would be treated at the academy. "I can help you." A voice called out to him. Naruto looked around for the voice, but he was alone. "There is no need to search for me, kid. Where are you?" Naruto asks the voice as he's still looking around. "I am talking to you inside of your head, so unless you want to be stared at, just think of what you want to ask me and talk inside of your mind. I will hear you just fine." "Okay then, who are you and why are you in my head?" Naruto asked as he was nearing his apartment. "I will explain all that when we are someplace where no one will feel an extreme amount of energy being released," the voice said. Naruto thought about the request for a minute before responding. "If you can read my thoughts you probably already know, but I'll say it anyway, there is a problem with your request. I've recently noticed that despite my best efforts there is always at least one person following me most of the time. Although they never seem to be around when I'm attacked for whatever reason. Also, well, I live in a shithole that no one else would even attempt to live in, others would notice us there, and thanks to break-ins and attacks the windows and locks in my apartment wouldn't keep out a 2-year-old. The only place left to consider is the Forest of Death, but I've heard people tell other people that there are things in there that are far stronger than the normal forest areas," Naruto says while waiting for a response. "Head to the forest and don't worry about anything. I'll be showing you a technique along the way that will both hide what we're going to do and keep the creatures of that forest at bay." Naruto wasn't sure he should trust the voice, but when the voice started calling out hand seals, he decided to go along with it, of course, after an explanation on what hand seals were and how to do them. Naruto made it to the Forest of Death, as this area was called, half an hour later. He looked around and couldn't sense anyone following him, which really didn't mean much as most genins could still escape his notice, but with the relative isolation of the area, he figured he was safe. "Okay kid, you're going to learn a sort of chakra control exercise called tree climbing. You need it to be able to scale these walls, and it will help increase your chakra reserves and make it easier for you to do the technique I need you to perform." That led to an explanation about chakra and why he needed more control before actually telling Naruto what to do. 6 hours later Naruto was still having trouble, so that led to the fox having to reveal himself to the child before he wanted to and altering his plans. Okay, stop. The voice called out, frustration evident. Naruto gladly stopped, feeling a little tired and sore from where he fell numerous times. I think it's time we met face to face. What do you mean meet? I thought you wanted me to get inside the forest first. Naruto asked, feeling a little better but still winded from his attempts at climbing the wall. I'm going to answer your questions, kid, but first I need you to sit down and concentrate on my voice. Naruto did as he was asked and after a few minutes suddenly heard the sound of water dripping. He opened his eyes to find himself not outside the walled-off forest of death but in a sewer with leaky pipes and water everywhere. This way, kid. Hearing the voice, he walks towards where he thinks the voice is originating from. A few minutes later he finds himself in front of a dark, dank-looking cage that's easily 10 times his height. Suddenly 2 blood-red eyes shone through the darkness, coming closer and closer to him. As it came closer he could make out a muzzle and then 2 fox ears. Fox ears, a red muzzle and eyes. I've seen that somewhere before. As the creature now stood only a few feet away from him, Naruto knew. You're the QB no Kitsune. Naruto states so the fox can hear him. And you're Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. At the mention of his name Naruto was confused. His face scrunched up a bit as he thought of what it meant as the fox just watched patiently. How do you know my name? Also, why did you say Namikaze? It's just Naruto Uzumaki. At this the fox laughed and smiled eerily, baring his teeth. Stupid humans never cease to amaze me. Hey, I'm not stupid. Naruto shouted to the fox. The fox chose to ignore the comment made by his jailer and press on. Look kid, originally I was going to have you going inside that forest and do this, but we can do it out here instead. Naruto looked at the fox and a thought suddenly came to his mind. Exactly why should I be trusting you? To say the fox was a bit shocked by the question was an understatement. He figured they had gotten past this point, and then there was the fact he figured his vessel was too dumb to question anything he said. Look kid, just trust me and I'll make you one of the most powerful beings on your pathetic plane of existence. Naruto thought for a second and part of him just wanted to do it, consequences be damned. However, everything else was screaming to make sure the fox couldn't turn this deal of theirs into the worst mistake he ever made. Look, don't think I am not appreciative of the offer, but I am only looking for training so I can defend well us. How powerful I get doesn't really matter to me as long as I can defend myself from all of my enemies. Naruto says, stunning the fox again. He then brought his head down and stared straight into Naruto's eyes. Then you're going to need to have an intense training schedule, kid. You have enemies that would make the Hokages look weak, and I'm not just talking about the different demons and Jinchuriki you may face in the future. There is one particular group of humans actively hunting people like you known as Jinchuriki because you have a demon sealed inside of you. Naruto thought about this and came to one conclusion. I knew my life was fucked, but I guess that just doesn't cover it anymore. Naruto said sadly, and the fox just grinned at his container's statement. True, but it doesn't have to be. I'm going to show you a clone technique that will help speed up parts of your training and allow you to get a little battle experience, but only after you allow me to change you a bit. What kind of changes exactly? Naruto asked, wanting to have some control for once in his life over what was happening to him. First, I plan to undo some of the damage these villagers have caused you by forcing you to starve and eat poorly. Then I am going to make it so you have 4 strong elemental affinities, including one that's rare for humans, and boost the 2 you already have. I will also enhance your senses and give you a Taijutsu with similar abilities to the Byakugan and the Sharingan, which I gave those traitors Uchiha's. Last, I'm going to give you a Kekkei Genkai that will allow you to combine 2 elements to create a new stronger one. That sounds great, but what's the price for you doing this for me? It's a simple price. I want you to focus and change this aura that's currently your mindscape into something more fitting of a demon of my stature. Also, I want to be able to sense everything you can. I want to be able to see what you see, smell what you smell, feel what you feel, and hear what you hear. Lastly, since I am locked away inside of you, I'll need you to avenge me and kill a couple of people who belong to that group I mentioned. They're the reasons I attacked your village, as I thought they were hiding here. Naruto thought about what the fox was asking and had one last question. Okay, that sounds reasonable. At this the fox grinned at his cunning. However, I want your word that outside of training you won't try to influence me in any way and that you won't attempt to take control of me. I also want those nightmares that I'm beginning to think are your memories to stop so I can sleep peacefully. Naruto said, stating his terms, which stopped the fox's grin. Fine, but the dreams I can't do anything about. That's part of the seal your father unwittingly created and used. The fox said, and now Naruto was confused again. What do you mean my father, and what is this seal supposed to do? That is the answer to why I called you Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. The Yondium Hokage, or fourth as you call him, was the one who sealed me into you, and he was your father. Why else would he use you to seal me when there were other flesh bags even newer than you that could have been used? The fox stopped to allow this to sink in. He was my father. The man who cursed me to this existence and left me all alone was my father. Naruto was stunned hearing this, but he was more than that, he was pissed. He always thought when he was finally told who his parents were he would find the love and attention he's always craved, but this was not what he expected. The only emotions he was feeling now were betrayal and anger. He was tempted to say to hell with everything and kill himself, but he knew the fox and the man he used to think of as a grandfather wouldn't allow that. He also knew he couldn't leave, as even with the fox's help and training, he figured there were some things he wouldn't be able to learn without becoming a ninja. Thanks for telling me. Can I ask what do you want me to call you, since I highly doubt your name is QP? I actually don't know my name, human. I've held many in the millennia I've been alive. Naruto sweat drops at that and then decides to come up with a name for the great beast. How about I call you Keen when I'm talking to you? Naruto asked and the QP thought for a moment. It's not the worst name you humans have called me, so I'll accept it. Okay Keen-sensei, then what's this about the seal? QP, or Keen as Naruto named him, was a bit flummoxed by the use of sensei. Sure, he was the strongest demon on the human plane, but he couldn't remember the last time someone showed him such genuine respect. It made it all the more strange that it was coming from a kid whose existence up to this point was comparable to the lower denizens of hell, but that was going to change, and QP or Keen would make sure of that. The seal your father used will continuously drain me of my Yaokai and convert it into chakra for you, which also means your chakra control will always be an issue for you. Once the seal accomplishes its primary goal, I will become little more than a spirit inside of you, and you will become a demon-human hybrid, better known as a Hanyu. If I ever get the chance to meet the sperm donor that helped create me, I might kill him. Naruto's statement caused the QP to grin and hope he's around to see it. Okay, so how long do I have for this transformation to occur? Naruto asked, hoping that it wouldn't be any time soon, yet at the same time wishing it would happen now. It all depends on you, kid. I imagine if you get strong enough to not need my Yaokai, the process will slow down or possibly stop if you block off the seal. Anyway kid, it won't be any time soon, so I wouldn't worry about it. Naruto thought this over and decided Keen was right. Okay, so what do you need me to do, Keen-sensei? Unfortunately, there is going to be a lot of pain for you, and it's going to be a while before it stops. All you need to do is rip the bottom portion of the seal that's on my cage. Then lay down and take the pain while praying no one comes to check on you. Also, if you could take off that ridiculous jumpsuit and check it for a sensor, I think the Hokage slipped on your clothes, that would help as well. After you find and destroy it, lay down and try to think of things you want to train in to distract yourself from the pain. Naruto was surprised at what the QP said. Would Saratobi Jiji really go that far and still not be there to help me all those times I was attacked? Naruto ripped off a small part of the tag, leaving it mostly unharmed or changed. Naruto woke up and found himself back outside the forest of death. He had to know if the fox was right, so he took off his jumpsuit and looked inside of it, and seeing something he never remembered seeing before. It looked like one of those sealed paper things like on the fox's cage, except silver in color. He tore it off and decided he needed to go through his entire apartment to see if there were any more and maybe fix the place up a little while he was at it. After he tore up the tag, he laid down on the ground, and not a second later the pain started. Trying to distract himself like the fox suggested, he started thinking of all the jutsus he wanted to learn, and the excitement began to override the pain. He knew for sure he wanted a big sword to strike his enemies down with, like he remembered seeing some guy do on a TV as he was passing by a shop window. That led to memories of how the shop owner beat him with a broom until he was a couple of blocks away for simply doing what a bunch of other kids were doing. Of course, he was the only one that got hit with a broom, as the other kids laughed before turning back to watch the show. He also thought about that seal he found and wondered if he could learn about how to make them, as something inside him found it very interesting. Meanwhile, in the Hokage's office, a tired and confused white-haired old man had been watching all of this from his crystal ball he had hidden in his office when the ball deactivated as Naruto found his tag. There were a lot of questions floating through the man's head, and he could see this was going to be a long night. Back at the entrance to the forest of death, it was going on 10 minutes and the pain was still coursing through Naruto. He had run out of things to think about, and even if he hadn't, the pain coursing through him was taking his complete focus. Naruto spent nearly the next 5 hours feeling nothing but pain. However, to anyone looking at him, it just looked like he was resting and having a bad dream or something weird. As soon as the pain left him, he passed out, oblivious to the physical changes his new sensei made. Naruto once again found himself inside his mindscape, but stopped to focus for a minute to change it into a forest like Keen-sensei asked. He concentrated for 5 minutes before opening his eyes and finding himself in a wooded area with trees 3 times the size of the ones he normally sees. He walks through the forest at a pace faster than he's accustomed to and finds himself in a clearing with a waterfall feeding a river that has extra large fish occasionally jumping around in it. He saw in the distance a castle he remembered creating based off one he saw in a book that was in a dumpster he was searching through for food once. That's when he found the QB running through his mental forest chasing after a larger than normal rabbit. Suddenly the rabbit jumps down a hole and is gone before the fox can catch it. Slightly angered that his prey got away, it took a few minutes before he noticed Naruto. Having fun, I see. The fox just smiled and then to Naruto's surprise changed into a more human form. He was tall over 6 feet easy with 2 red fox ears, red hair, red slit eyes, wearing a simple black kimono with black pants and a shirt underneath. It was nice to run around for a second, but now we have some business to attend to. Your training will start tomorrow, but I need to teach you a simple genjutsu to hide your new look. Keen-sensei taught Naruto how to hide his new form with a simple henge and how to layer it in case someone tries to dispel it. It took him a couple of hours inside his mindscape, but he eventually got it and after waking up applied the henge and layered it 5 times just to be safe. He would have done more, but with no control over his chakra, layering the henge in such a way almost exhausted him. He raced to the nearest shop and tried to go in. When he was kicked out as the store owner yelled, "Get out, you little demon." He figured he looked as close enough to how he normally did and headed home. Luckily he managed to make it home without running into anyone else, so once he got home, he immediately dispelled the technique and went to bed. Back in his office, the Hokage was looking out the window in the direction he knew the troubled young blonde lived. After witnessing what was happening, a lot of thoughts were going through his mind that demanded answering. He decided to let Naruto sleep for now. He couldn't prove it, but he knew whatever was happening involved the QB. He just hoped whatever it was that the boy would at least be honest with him about it. However, lately he had been feeling a bit of disconnection between himself and his self-appointed grandson. He couldn't help but feel a deep sense of dread and worry over what would happen next. It had been a month since the night Sarutobi felt he witnessed the QB influencing Naruto. He had an Anbu bring him to his office the next day, but the boy wouldn't say a word, so he asked the Anbu he had trailing the boy to report any weirdness. However, things seemed to be the same. He felt bad when through his globe he saw a group of citizens and shinobi beating on the boy savagely, only to feel a sense of relief when it was over. "I can't believe I felt relief over seeing a 7-year-old child beaten near to death because nothing happened to those who did the beating. They got off without so much as a word said to them. Well, at least they didn't use any weapons that time." Then his mood soured even more. Of course, emboldened by my inaction, they returned the night after he was released from the hospital with weapons. He had to force himself to think about more pleasant things, like Icha when the terrible memories of that night surfaced in his mind. He did nothing again, not that the civilian council would allow him to, but made sure Naruto got home safely when he was released. The old man was tired and knew he was doing a poor job protecting one of his village's greatest heroes. The problem was, despite his affection for the boy and his promise to his father, he felt the villagers were somewhat justified to their anger. Therefore, despite their reprehensible actions, he couldn't hold them responsible. The only question was, how much could one little boy take? That was why he sent one of the few ninjas he knew to have no ill feelings toward Naruto to bring him to his private office. There was a knock at the door and he called out for them to come in. Soon he was staring at Naruto, who he knew was in a henge. He was so distracted that he forgot to dismiss the Anbu. "Naruto, could you please drop that henge you're using?" Naruto thought of complying at first, but thought better of it after remembering everything. "Henge. This is how I always look, Hokage-sama." Sarutobi was surprised and so was the Anbu. "Look, Naruto, you did a good job with it, especially when you haven't even been to the academy yet. However, good job or not, I am the Hokage for a reason, so please drop the henge." "Yeah, kid. I didn't notice until now, but I can definitely tell you're using a henge." Naruto just looked at them and undid one layer. "Okay, that henge is down and see nothing's changed, so can we move on to why I'm here?" This is not how Naruto acts. "Oh, Kami, don't tell me he figured something out." "Naruto, please remove all of the henges," the Hokage asked. The Anbu was both annoyed by this kid and impressed. "I didn't learn how to layer a genjutsu until I was a chunin. I might request to take a few shifts guarding the brat and see what he is really up to." "I apologize again, Hokage Dono, but I cannot do what you ask." Now this was getting frustrating. "Naruto, I order you to remove the hinges this instant." "I apologize again, Hokage-san, but I can simply not follow the request. I am a civilian child and not a ninja. I understand if it makes you uncomfortable, but I would appreciate it if we could move on to why you asked for me." What is up with all the different ways he's saying Hokage? He's being respectful, but also disrespectful at the same time. The Naruto I know isn't this smart and he would have called me Jiji at least once. What is with this kid and how is he getting away with this? Technically he's right, but most civilians wouldn't be stupid enough to challenge the Hokage, and how is he keeping up those hinges for so long at his age? Okay, let's move on. I need to know what happened last month. I know I asked you before, but you didn't answer, and so I let it go. I had hoped you would come and talk to me on your own, but since you haven't I'm afraid I'm going to need you to answer me now. I thought he had forgotten about that. I still remember all those tags I found on my clothes and in my apartment, but there's something else also. He has a way of watching me, but it must be hidden or something only he can do. What are you referring to, Hokage Kai? There were a lot of nights last month where something happened to me. The Hokage and the Anbu both frowned at the response. This isn't going to be as easy as I thought. Naruto, please just be honest with me. You were spotted near the Forest of Death. Did something happen that you would consider weird or out of the ordinary? For a minute nothing was said, and everyone was silent as Naruto took up what would look to be a thinking pose. Nope, can't say that there was. If that's all, Hokage Denka, then I'd like to be excused. It's almost time for lunch. At Naruto's response, Sarutobi smiled and thought for sure he could get through to the blonde with his favorite food as a lure. You're right, Naruto-kun. How about I treat you to some ramen? Asked the Hokage. No thanks, Hokage Haika, I'm going to eat at home instead. Thanks for the offer. To say Sarutobi was stunned was an understatement. There was no way he ever believed the blonde would turn down free ramen. Oh Kami, now I know for sure something's wrong. Oh, maybe I can join you, Naruto-kun, and we can talk some more. Sorry, but as I'm sure you know, my apartment isn't suitable for company. I must be leaving, however. So may I be excused? Actually, one last thing before you leave, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded. The council has decided you will be allowed to attend the academy when it starts next year. We will of course pay the expense, but you will be responsible for your supplies. They've also decided that instead of putting you with the first years, you will be allowed to join with the kids of your age group so you don't feel too out of place. Thank you, was all Naruto said as he walked out of the office without so much as a goodbye. I fear he's already heading towards the dark side of life, and I have no idea how to get him back on the right path. Robin, what's your opinion of the child that just left? She was stunned that he would ask her opinion, but after taking a minute she answered. Hokage-sama, I can only say he's much more than what I've heard, and unfortunately life has not been kind to him. I sense a dark energy that is not connected to it slowly consuming him. He will be lost if something isn't done soon. I was thinking the same thing. You wouldn't happen to have any solutions to fix the problem, would you? Outside of kindness and love there is no quick fix unless you can change history. The Hokage nodded and dismissed her after thanking her for her counsel. I'll wait until he finishes the academy before making any decisions. Maybe a few friends his own age would help, but I highly doubt he'll be accepted easily. I already delayed his entry due to pressure from the clan and civilian council, but that's just making things worse. I just hope he can survive, graduate, and stay loyal, not that we've given him many reasons to be. He turned to survey his desk. At least there is less paperwork since he's pretty much stayed out of sight. Time for a smoke, a drink, and a certain little orange book. The Hokage thought, smiling at his newly instituted private time. Naruto had just left the tower and could feel the old man's eyes on him. Well, that was interesting, but I don't know how much longer I'll be able to stay under his radar if things keep going the way they are. As it is, I had to agree to go through with that stupid agreement I made to go to the academy and become the best Hokage ever. Naruto thought, trying hard to stifle a laugh at his previous self and how stupid he'd had to act just to survive this damn village. I have to keep reminding myself I'm still way too weak. If what Keen told me is accurate, I need to be stronger than the old man was in his prime, and Keen won't teach me how to use my elemental affinities or Keki Genkai until next year. Naruto sighed when thinking about everything he had yet to do and would need to do. I guess right now I should just keep focusing on my current training. Naruto thought about the increasingly difficult workout Keen was putting him through with the use of seals and weights. Keen decided that the boy needed physical training more than anything right now, and a better diet as he was slow and short, two things that didn't bode well for his jailer. Although he figured he fixed one of those issues somewhat, and only time and a good diet mixed with punishing exercises would take care of the rest. So with that in mind, he had Naruto go to every store hinged as his normal self and try to buy what he needed. It took a week, but soon Naruto had a map that marked every store that would serve him and another mark for those that would treat him fairly, which was a handful at best. Only one place had a third mark for treating him well or like a hero, and that was Ichiraku's, although he made a point to not be seen there, except under the guise of a henge to not mess up their business. So to get everything he needed, it started with the stores that would treat him fairly and then the ones that would serve him. He did get kicked out of a few when he tried to force them to serve him fairly with honest prices, but most begrudgingly sold him items at their correct price. He even got a few items at sale price. He was happy he had found a ninja supply shop that would treat him fairly, even if he was forced to come back after hours to shop, so no one would see him and hurt the owner's business. The owner turned out to be a nice guy who Naruto found out had a daughter who was only a year older than him and already in the academy. Though he never met her and was thinking it was on purpose more and more. However, food was still an issue as it seemed like no one outside of Ichiraku's ramen wanted to even have him near their establishment, and the grocery stores tried to force him to buy stale or rotted food. He got around this by simply changing his henges to resemble a couple of boys from some of the clans he saw walking around the village. He thought about being angry at how much better he was treated, but it served no purpose for him. He had resigned himself to the fact that as long as he was in Konoha, no matter what he did, he'd never be treated just like everyone else, much less like the clan kids who were treated better than average, some bordering on royal treatment. No, it wouldn't change things to be all angsty about Dot. Besides, if they knew what he could really do, he'd never be treated like the Uchiha's or Hyugas, but he had little doubt they'd be lining up for blocks to kiss his butt and apologize while trying to force him into something so they could use him. He figured as things were, life was getting better for the young Jinchuriki, but they were still far from ideal. Hey Brad, if you got the energy to think about all this crap, then you need to do your afternoon exercises. Naruto sighed, but did as he was ordered. 3 hours later, after running around Konoha 5 times, doing 50 push-ups, 50 pull-ups, 50 sit-ups, 50 jumping jacks, 50 squats and lunges, and stretches by the end of his new routine, Naruto laid out on the grass of a local park, looking on as other children played and laughed happily without a care in the world. Naruto couldn't help but feel a little envy creep up inside of him. It didn't last long as he decided to head home and read a book or two before going to bed. I have to remember to sneak them back into the library and get some more soon. His thoughts drifted off to what would happen next year and if he might find one more person in a village filled with idiots and hypocrites that could see him for who he was and not what they heard or were told. Naruto could only sigh at the scene before him. It was finally time for him to join the academy and he admittedly found himself a little nervous. He watched his parents escorted their kids to the school, dropped them off and stood around with other parents, talking about how great their kids were. Well, most of them anyway. He took notice of one little girl with wide eyes who was just standing there with a blank expression on her face as an older boy who didn't look too kindly towards her left her outside the school without so much as a wave. He could see a similar pain in her eyes, but she didn't seem to possess the anger or emptiness that most saw within his own. The other parents and children all seemed to be avoiding her, taking care not to bump into her, only sparing a few polite pleasantries before scurrying off. She suddenly turned and looked at him like she was studying him, but he saw no hate or anger in the look, so he faked a smile and waved at her. She quickly turned, hiding the blush that was spreading over her as she walked into the academy. Naruto frowned at the weird actions of the girl, but soon his focus was turned to the angry group of people coming towards him. Naruto decided that today wouldn't be like the other days. He had played the good little victim during the last year, all the while training and getting stronger, faster, and maybe more importantly smarter under his sensei's direction. Now that he was entering the academy, both thought it was time to show Konoha that they had lost their punching bag and scapegoat. He just stood there with his eyes closed as they circled him and started their taunting and jeering. "What are you doing here, demon?" There was no response. "Answer him, you little demon shit." The shrill pink-haired woman was ignored as well. After a few minutes of this went by with the boy saying nothing and a gathering crowd cheering them on, one of them went to strike the blonde boy. Naruto's eyes suddenly opened and he grabbed a fist of a pink-haired woman that was inches away from his face. "Why are you trying to hit me?" Naruto asked in a voice that reminded all involved and those watching that he was still just a child. "'Cause you're a monster." The pink-haired woman shrieked as she tried to wrench her fist back from the boy's grasp. The only response she received was a laugh as he shoved her fist away and walked by her and through the crowd that parted for the demented blonde. "What the hell was that? Do you think he's finally breaking? Have we gone too far? I know my kid would have snapped a long time ago." Those were just a fraction of the many questions and thoughts that ran through the crowd until the sounding of the school bell broke their thoughts and they went about their day. They all left with thoughts of telling their kids to avoid Uzumaki Naruto at all costs when they saw them later. In his office, watching everything from his office through his crystal ball, Sarutobi was wondering the same thing. Naruto continued walking and had almost reached the front doors of the school when a group of teachers quickly came out and surrounded him. They mirrored the earlier mob in their taunts, jeers, and questions. Naruto merely flashed the registration papers signed by the Hokage himself and walked by them, easily pushing past the Chunin blocking the door. As he walked through the halls, he could see the teachers all looking at him evilly and he just smiled at each and everyone, giving a little wave. All had two thoughts: is he really so dumb that doesn't notice I don't like him, or is that little demon shit mocking me? I'll show him. Naruto just kept walking until he reached the door of the class the Hokage assigned him to. Opening the door, he was greeted to the sight of his future classmates trying to stare a hole through him. Well, maybe not all. The girl from earlier was looking at him, but he still couldn't sense anything bad from her, so he slowly walked up to her, ignoring the stares and glares the others were giving him. She was sitting in the fourth row near the middle with two empty chairs beside her, so he asked, "Mind if I sit here?" She just shrugged her shoulders and looked away from him. Naruto calmly rounded the desk taking the aisle seat and slid the chair out, but just as he was about to sit down, someone decided to put their hands on him. Naruto looked at the window as he watched a reflection of the person behind him. "I would appreciate it if you would remove your hands," Naruto says calmly, not wanting to fight on his first day as he sat down. "And I would like for you to get up and find another seat," said a scruffy-looking boy with dark eyes and red marks on his face, with what looked to be a white puppy on his head barking. Now it was true that Naruto hadn't started to learn anything outside of chakra control and a few seals that according to Keen-sensei would help make him faster, stronger, and quicker if he kept up with his exercises and other physical training. However, that did not mean he hadn't experimented with a few of his gifts, and the scruffy-haired kid was about to feel the result of one of those experiments. "I will ask one last time, please remove your hand. There is another seat next to the lady if you wish to sit next to her, otherwise leave." The other kids had watched as all this happened and except for a certain wide-eyed girl, thought the new kid or demon brat as they heard their parents refer to the blonde was about to get his butt kicked. "Make me demon." At the scruffy kid's shout all Naruto did was give a wide grin still sitting in his seat. The smile lacked the eye-piercing gleam that Madao guy was known to produce, but it still gave off an innocence that would belie what was about to happen. Kiba was putting as much pressure as he could on the demon's shoulders, trying to make him cry. He was so focused on his task that he didn't notice Naruto place his hands over his until he started to feel really warm. Still, he pressed on figuring he could cool down when the demon kid ran back to his crappy rat hole apartment. Kiba knew where he lived as he joined some other kids from time to time and threw rocks at the building the blonde kid lived. He didn't know that what he was doing was wrong. He was just trying to fit in and make some friend, and picking on the blonde kid seemed to be the easiest way to do both. Kiba was sure he was going to be praised and become popular for what he was doing. Also, he wanted to impress the Hyuga heiress and surely she didn't want the demon kid to sit next to her. No, she's just too kind to tell him to get lost. Kiba was sure of that, so he pressed on despite feeling a little hot now and smelling something like meat on the grill. Naruto just continued to smile as Kiba remained oblivious to what he was doing to the disbelief of everyone in the classroom. How can he be so dumb not to notice his hands are practically on fire? Was the common thought. Naruto had spent the entire year training his speed, strength, and chakra control. However, he also bought quite a few books on many different subjects, including elemental manipulation. He hadn't even done one exercise to begin to master his elements, but thanks to a strong affinity for fire and his Kekkei Genkai, he found he could heat the area around him to ungodly temperatures, which is what he was doing, focusing on the area around Kiba's hands so as not to bother the pale-eyed girl who sat next to him. It didn't take but a second more as Naruto focused more on Kiba. "What the hell, why is it so hot in here and why do my hands ouch? Ouch. Ouch. Hot hot hot." Kiba screamed as he ran for the nearest water source, knocking down their Chunin teacher in his mad scramble for the bathroom. The puppy had also fallen during the collision and after a few shakes ran barking down the halls after his master, which alerted the other classes who were wondering what was going on. The teacher Kiba ran over, got up and dusted himself off before standing in front of the class. "Can anyone tell me what just happened?" asked the white-haired Chunin. He didn't receive an answer, but by the looks everyone except the Hyuga heiress was throwing towards a blonde boy he didn't need one. "Uzumaki, what did you do?" the man shouted only to get a shrug from Naruto, though he wondered how he knew his name when he hadn't even looked over the attendance sheet. "Fine, but until you remember you will stand outside the classroom and you better be there when I come out to check on you," the Chunin says loudly as his classmates snicker and laugh at him. Naruto didn't reply or look at anyone as he walked out of the room, so he never saw the pale-eyed girl watch sadly as he walked away. He stood out in the hallway for hours, and the only thing that happened was Kiba coming back with his hands wrapped up and smelling like he rolled around in a toilet that the previous user hadn't bothered to flush. Naruto just smirked as Kiba and his little puppy, although Naruto couldn't be sure on that one, glared at him with looks of revenge on their faces. They quickly ran into the classroom though when they noticed it was starting to get hot and Naruto was giving off some reddish-orange aura. Naruto looked inside the room to find the teacher and saw him with a similar smirk to the one he just gave Kiba. The man calmly walked over and closed the door in his face, getting more giggles and laughs from his classmates. Naruto stood outside for another 30 minutes before he'd had enough. He figured something like this would happen the moment any trouble happened in class. It's not like he'd never been blamed or punished for stuff he didn't do before. So instead of wasting more time he could be using to train, he created a single Kage Bunshin and then hinged himself to look like a dark-haired, dark-eyed, black-clad, whiskerless version of himself and walking up to the roof before he jumped to the next one and ran off to the Forest of Death so he could train in private for the rest of the day. It was now Saturday and Naruto was thinking back on his previous week of school. He didn't know if he should really say that as he spent more time in the Forest of Death as he was told his favorite training area was called than actually in school. He mentally thanked his still asleep sensei for teaching him Kage Bunshin, because otherwise he would have been stuck spending most of his days this week standing in the hallway. He didn't even know what he did to be thrown out these past 2 days, as after Wednesday he had opted to avoid being near the Hyuga heiress as it was bringing too much unwanted attention on him. It wasn't like she ever spoke to him, so he really felt no loss there, and he liked to be alone most of the time. It was better than being treated like a monster anyway. Letting out a deep sigh, Naruto did his morning routine, which started with a nice breakfast of sausage patties, fried egg omelets, sliced apples, toast, and orange juice, then took a shower and finished by brushing his hair and teeth before gathering up what he would need for school or training and sealing it up. As he checked to see he had everything, he made a Kage Bunshin to clean up and shut everything off and then headed to school the civilian way. He made it to school with 10 minutes to spare, receiving the normal glares and hate-filled utterances, but ever since that first day he noticed most people stayed as far away as possible from the blonde. The Hokage had even sent for him on Wednesday to get him to promise not to do a repeat performance, as he spent most of his afternoon Monday and the entire day Tuesday fielding complaints, transfer requests, death threats towards Naruto, etc. Then Tsume Yuzuka barged in demanding he apologize to Kiba, who had told her some ridiculous story about how the demon kid attacked him when he was trying to help the Hyuga heiress and had his back turned to him. That did get a good laugh out of him even as Saratobi frowned at him. Of course she stormed out without an apology and a bit red in the face when the Hokage relayed what really happened. She didn't care about what Kiba did to Naruto, but for lying to her and making her look silly in front of the Hokage. Well, Kiba wasn't going to like what happened to him when he got home. However, their intrusion did give the Hokage the opportunity to question Naruto about what he did to Kiba. Naruto cursed silently to himself about how much tap dancing he had to do to get around answering the man who was very insistent. Damn nosy old man and his stupid snitches. Naruto walked past the parents, teachers, and other students who were giving him a lot of space without saying a word or even acknowledging any of them. Many parents had tried to get either him kicked out of the school or their kids transferred from the class he was in, but the other classes were full. The only kid who was transferred out was Sasuke, who was switched with a civilian boy whose parents complained at first but bit their tongue as the council said it was for the good of the last remaining loyal Uchiha. After hearing about the incident with Kiba, they tried to force the Hokage to kill or exile Naruto, but even with a majority vote in favor of both the Hokage refused, and so they settled for secretly upping Sasuke's secret training and asking for an upgrade to the watch on Naruto as he was clearly getting training from somewhere. The Hokage granted the request as he himself had trouble watching Naruto through his own devices and wanted some answers. Unfortunately for Naruto, when the reason for Sasuke's transfer got out, his fangirls didn't take it so well. Naruto suddenly became a target for every mean-spirited joke and prank they could come up with, but all had failed and in some cases backfired, which only made them angrier and more determined. Kiba also took any opportunity to make a joke at Naruto's expense or insult him. Walking through the halls to his class, Naruto thought about the real reason Sasuke was transferred. Tuesday, the teacher Mizuki decided to take the class outside and see what their level was in practical ninja skills. He bombed Jinjutsu as he'd only had enough skill to break out of Genin level illusions and didn't have any knowledge of how to make one. He also bombed ninjutsu as he didn't know any. Throwing weapons he barely passed as he hadn't practiced much yet with them. Taijutsu though is where he rose some eyebrows. It wasn't because of his skill as he hadn't actually found a style he liked yet, but his speed and strength were at such a level, thanks to his training, that the civilian kid he was pitted against was badly hurt with just a few punches as he couldn't guard against Naruto's speed. The council didn't think he could beat Sasuke, but why risk it? To have Sasuke lose to the demon brat would ruin all their plans, so for now they thought it best to keep them separate until they had no choice, which would give them 2 more years before the class size would dwindle to the point that it would be foolish to have more than one class. Naruto walked into class and took his customary seat at the very back next to a window. He chuckled at the fact that since the fight, he'd been given an even wider berth than before, as no one would sit in his section of seats, so he could lay out using the 3 chairs as an uncomfortable bench of sorts. Oddly enough, Mizuki left him alone and didn't kick him out until he raised up and tried to participate in the class discussion they were having. At this point, all the remaining students entered, with Mizuki quickly following. After roll call, Mizuki got into a long lecture on the founding of Konoha, at which point Naruto tuned him out. It was 10 minutes into the lecture when Kiba, who was sitting a few rows in front of Naruto, decided to blow spitballs at Mizuki. Naruto was impressed by the range, but less than impressed when he was blamed for it and angered when, just like every day this week, he'd been kicked out of class. Leaving his books, Naruto got up and walked out of the class with the snickers and comments following him. Standing outside, Naruto didn't even wait 5 minutes before creating a Kage Bunshin and once again going up to the roof hinge to look like someone else and racing off to train. Part of him was glad Mizuki kept kicking him out and giving him the opportunity to leave and train instead of wasting time in a place that would only seek ways to humiliate him and hold him back. Still, he reckoned the next 4 years were going to be the longest of his life. Well, at least Keen-sensei promised he would start his elemental training tomorrow, so he had something to look forward to. The morning sun shone down on our blonde-haired hero. It was the morning of the exams and he was debating with Keen the merits of showing up or not. You have to go, otherwise the old man will just insist that you stay another year in that place. All he got was a deep sigh. I know that, sensei, but I don't see why I can't just send a powered-up Kage Bunshin instead. You do remember what that so-called teacher of yours said last week, right? This got another sigh. I know, somehow after not seeming to see it for the whole year, the asshole caught on to our little act, though I'm not sure how. Naruto frowned at being caught by a mere chunin teacher. I doubt it was him who caught on to it. Yeah, you are probably right, which means I have no choice. Naruto sighed and got ready. After showering, eating a clone-prepared breakfast, and brushing his teeth, Naruto left a little early and started his walk towards the academy. It wasn't a long walk, but it always felt like it with the glares that accompanied his every movement. Still, he moved with an air of confidence and awareness that kept them at bay. After the first day of the academy, the word had gotten around the Uzumaki boy was cracking and was starting to fight back. Despite what one would believe, the village of Konohagakure was not filled with morons, hypocrites, or evil-minded bigots. No, they didn't need to be told who Naruto's parents were or see several hundred blood tests to recognize who he was. It seemed like every day he was becoming more and more the mirror image of his father, and his old personality reminded them even more of his mother. Lady Kushina, the last survivor of Whirlpool, had become a beloved figure in Konoha, and her relationship with Minato was much less a secret than they believed. Still, in their grief they had become blinded by the lies of a few. The few became the some and the some became the majority, but the anger had long since gone away, replaced by a weary tension the last 4 years. The carefree, smiling, helpful child was replaced by a cold, uncaring, untrusting boy. Then there was the council. It wasn't only the Hokage who was slowly being reduced to little more than a paper tiger, a figurehead by their greed. No, it was also the civilians. By the time they had all come to their senses, they were too much under their thumb to do anything other than follow their orders and continue to treat Naruto like they had been treating him. So with many regrets and great sadness, they turned their hate, now fueled by the council, towards the boy they all secretly admired and wanted to help. Naruto just looked at the school, recalling the memories from his clones. After that first week, Naruto had just kept sending fully charged shadow clones every day while he worked on his physical skills and abilities, chakra control, elemental manipulation, fuinjutsu, jinjutsu, and ninjutsu. However, Naruto's favorite skill to practice were his clone jutsus. They were just so useful, and with or through them he could literally be his very own army. His chakra control by the end of his second year in the academy was enough to finally be able to do the basic clone jutsu they taught in the academy, and as weak as it was, it had its uses, he would admit. One of the things he hated most about the academy was that Mizuki seemed to follow him, or rather his clones, throughout his years in the academy. First as a teacher and then as Naruto rose past his responsibilities, he managed to weasel his way in as an assistant. It was like the guy was possessed by the need to make his school days hell. It only got worse when Sasuke returned. If his fangirls were unbearable before, he was sure there was a special place in hell for all of them. Especially the ringleaders Sakura, Ino, and Ami with her 2 shadows. He seriously questioned what it meant to be a ninja if these girls were being allowed to pass. As he walked into the school and through the halls with the all-present glare following him, he couldn't help but think of what might have become of him if he didn't know the Kage Bunshin Jutsu and wasted 8 hours a day 6 days a week being intentionally misinformed and misled. He seriously doubted he would be prepared for what Keen told him was coming in the future. He only knew for sure of one threat, but he was enough of one. To fight Uchiha Itachi and live was something not many people could say, but he wanted to be one of those that could. He could still remember that night when Itachi delivered said threat personally. Naruto had been awakened by a loud banging noise and wasn't in the mood for company due to a little run-in with another of those damn mobs earlier. "Alright already, I'm coming, damn it," Naruto shouted at the jerk that was still banging on his door. "Good thing I took some time to actually fix this place up a little. That old door would have long been smashed through, which reminds me, why am I answering the door in the middle of the night with my history?" Before Naruto could really think about it though, the pounding stopped and a second later the door opened. "Hello, Naruto-kun," the voice said, and before Naruto could respond he found himself in darkness. "Welcome to my world, Naruto-kun." Naruto blinked, finding himself in an open grassy area with trees on the edges as a strong gust of wind made him cover his face for a second. "You can lower your arms now, Naruto-kun." Naruto did, and a frown overcame his face. "To what do I owe the pleasure of your visit, Itachi-san?" "Interesting. I didn't know you knew my name, Naruto-kun." "Well, your clan among others have caused me a lot of pain in the past. I make it my business to know about those who would be able to do so for future reference. It seems I was right about you, Naruto-kun. My clan was of the opinion that my brother or me would end up being the strongest from our village, but I always disagreed with that assumption. Do you know who I always told my father would one day be that individual? Naruto just shrugged, looking around for a means of escape. All he got for a response was a smile. Itachi noticed that Naruto seemed to continue looking for a way out. I apologize for not explaining this sooner, Naruto-kun, but this world we are in is Tsukiyomi, an ability of my Mangekyo Sharingan, and there is no escape. Oh, and how long am I here for? A few seconds in the real world can be days or weeks in here, but I will only keep you long enough to deliver my message. I have been set up by people who seek yours or more, to the point your prisoner's power. So why are you telling me? I have been watching you for a long time and I'm impressed. You have survived where many would have fallen. Okay, so what am I supposed to do? I would tell you to train hard, but you do. Just make sure by the time you graduate you have at least low Jounin level skill in most, if not every aspect of ninja skill, or you won't make it past your first year. Besides the obvious, why are you telling me this and what do you want? Itachi just looked at Naruto and then gave a rare smile. The answer is one and the same, Naruto-kun. I desire strength, and some time after your graduation I'll find you and we'll fight. I hope you'll be ready, Naruto-kun. It was dark again, and before Naruto could do anything he felt lips touch his and found himself in a strong embrace as suddenly a tongue slid in past his lips. He struggled against it, but something about it felt right. Suddenly though, he found himself back at his front door and nothing there except for a key that looked like his. There was a note taped to his chest, so he looked down and read it. It was a warning about Sasuke and the believed method of attaining the Mangekyo Sharingan. I hate him anyway, so no problem with that, but why would he care to warn me, and what was with that kiss? Naruto thought as he picked up what was a copy of his key that he hadn't made. I really need to do something about that landlord of mine as well. Naruto went back inside to try and get some sleep after burning the note and placing the key in a drawer filled with copies of his key. Naruto awoke from his thoughts to find himself outside of the classroom. Luckily he was still early, so walking in and only seeing a few people he headed straight for the seat his clones usually took all the way in the back near the windows. Taking his seat, his thoughts once again turned to that night. I still have no clue as to what that was about or if it was really real. I mean, what was that pressure against my chest when he kissed me? Always my little Naru-chan thinking about his little boyfriend again. Shut it, Keen. I am not gay. TSK, 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 Naru-chan. You shouldn't deny your true feelings. I'm a demon after all, and if you are gay that's fine with me. Demons of all kinds, colors and sexes get together where I am from, so there's nothing to be ashamed of. Thanks for the understanding, but it's not needed now. Shut up or I'll turn my mindscape into fuzzy land. Naruto was soon pulled out of his conversation by the shouting of Ino and Sakura as they were fighting over sitting next to Sasuke, who was doing his best to ignore them. Unfortunately, Sasuke was sitting next to him as he had started doing halfway through the third year when he rejoined Naruto's class. Naruto hated it, but after his clones started to dodge him so it didn't have to put up with the two crazed girls, the Uchiha would seemingly wait him out before jumping to the seat next to him. It wouldn't have been an issue, but he always waited until most of the other seats were taken. So Sasuke ignored him, and his clones ignored Sasuke now, so was he. I wonder why they never realized there are two chairs beside him and they could both sit beside him. Naruto just shrugged and chalked it up to them being fangirls. Soon Ruka came in and used his big head jutsu to get everyone to shut up. Also, surprisingly, Ino managed to steal the seat from out under Sakura and was smugly sticking her tongue out at a defeated-looking Sakura as she sat next to Sasuke. Naruto tuned out the drama as he looked to see the pale-eyed girl he came to know as Hinata looking at him. He just smiled and waved as she quickly turned around. Reviewing the memories of his clones showed that she did that constantly and for whatever reason seemed to avoid being near him. He didn't really know what to think about the girl other than he thought she was really cute and really weird. Naruto stopped this line of thinking as both teachers stood up and the man he now knew as Iruka started talking. Alright everybody, today is this last day for those who have not taken or passed the Genin exam. He stops and looks at Naruto with a glare. For those of you who have passed, you are welcome to take it again to try and improve your marks, otherwise you can go home. To Naruto's surprise, only Hinata, a boy called Shino, and Sasuke got up and left. I wonder how come no one else passed before. I know I failed mainly cause I was trying to, and those two pricks were pulling tricks to make me fail. I bet they'd be surprised if I told them I was trying to fail. Naruto just grinned, suppressing a laugh as he once again caught the glares of the two teachers. Okay everybody, Mizuki will pass out the tests and remember to use standard number 2 pencils, and if you need to you may pull out a piece of paper now to work with, and when you're done attach it with a paper clip to your test. Naruto of course pulled out a couple of pieces from a pocket that had a seal hidden in it and a pencil. I wonder why they always say use a number 2 pencil. Is there a no. 3 pencil somewhere? Mizuki finally reached Naruto's row, and with Sasuke gone it was just him and Ino, but Mizuki just left his test on the seat furthest from him and walked away with a smile, and Ino didn't look like she was willing to pass it to him. Naruto reached over and grabbed his test and immediately noticed the genjutsu over it. He looked down, and sure enough both teachers had a stupid smirk on their faces. Naruto just smiled and looked down at his test. I could piss them off and simply dispel the genjutsu, but I think I'll do one better. Now it was Naruto's turn to give the teachers a smirk, and they instantly looked confused. Naruto took a sheet of paper and wrote down the questions before dispelling the genjutsu and working on the real test before turning to his teacher's test. Naruto just finished as Mizuki called for everyone to stop and bring their tests up before heading out to the training fields. Naruto was the last one to hand in his paper and with a smirk left to join his classmates. Iruka and Mizuki quickly checked the other papers before looking at Naruto's and then his worksheet. Mizuki, how the hell did he answer these? I remember these as being on the Chunin exam test when we took it. Iruka said looking over the paper again. I don't know, but he must have cheated somehow. How? We were watching the little demon like hawks. I don't know, but he must have. There's no way he's this smart. I guess, but there's nothing we can do. I have to pass him for this part of the test, and worse is he'll get the top score, a perfect 100. Both men sighed before heading out to give the rest of the test, hoping the demon fails the next one. They soon caught up to the class and found them lounging around amicably talking amongst themselves with Naruto far off to the side, looking like he was in a trance. Okay everybody, we graded the tests and here are the top 5. 5. Narashikamaru, 4. Tamachi Kaoru, 3. Nobuzuru Haruto, 2. Haruno Sakura, 1. Uzumaki Naruto. Everyone was shocked at the results except for Naruto, who just smiled and waved at everyone as they stared at him. A minute later the fog was broken and they all began discussing how the demon brat cheated. Naruto just continued to smile, loving the turmoil he caused in the insignificant little minds. A few minutes later they were assembled in front of a bunch of targets that were placed at varying distances. Being an Uzumaki at least had one advantage. Naruto got the goal last as all the other kids went before him, and without the 3 who already scored high enough to pass the 2 previous times, the rest were average at best. However, to pass all they needed was to hit 5 out of 10 on both shuriken and kunai throwing, or hit the target 10 times. It surprised Naruto when Ino and Sakura managed to hit 7 using both, while the rest settled for hitting 10 combined, as most seemed to do better with kunai than the shuriken for some reason. When it was his turn, Naruto stepped up to the line and taking his time hit all 10 targets in the bullseye with a shuriken, secretly using a little wind chakra to correct the path of any that seemed off target. Hearing the mummers, Naruto smiled as he took his time and all 10 kunai wound up in the bullseye beside the shuriken. Iruka and Mizuki were beside themselves as they expected him to fail miserably and kick him out with the 3 strikes rule, never to see him again unless they were in the mood for a little revenge or torture. However, it seemed like nothing they did was working even when they tried to knock his kunai and shuriken off course. It wasn't looking good for Mizuki's plan as he really needed Naruto to fail in order to get him to steal the forbidden scroll. He hated to admit it, but that little demon was already twice the ninja he was in regards to stealth and infiltration. All he had to do was keep Iruka blinded to the truth of their little alliance by using the grief over his parents to fuel his hate. Mizuki realized they only had one chance left to fail the little monster, and that was during the 3 basic jutsu test. If he couldn't do those, then it wouldn't matter how high he tested in the other portions of the exam, he would automatically be failed. The taijutsu portion of the exam was easy for Naruto. It didn't test their knowledge or form. The test was a simple how long can you stay in the ring against a teacher's test. Of course they took it easy on everyone except Naruto, which meant all except a few lost causes failed. When Naruto's turn came up, Mizuki made sure to go all out on him. It caught Naruto by surprise as even though he expected them to be rougher on him, he didn't expect them to go so far. Mizuki took advantage and after a quick punch that slightly dazed Naruto, he followed up with a roundhouse kick, but Naruto managed to duck down fast enough and avoid the hit. Naruto maneuvered Mizuki around until he could see the clock had 20 seconds left, so he moved towards Mizuki and weaved through his increasingly desperate attacks until he got close enough to hit him with a chakra-enhanced punch to the gut that knocked the wind out of him and then followed with 2 quick kicks to the knees and then a roundhouse kick to his temple, knocking him out just as the timer went off. Okay, maybe a little after the timer went off. The rest of the class just stood their mouths open as flies went in and out. He wasn't surprised by the reaction as his clones mostly forfeited when anyone who could do even a little damage was his opponent, as they might dispel or accidentally kill one of his more permanent clones. Iruka snapped out of it and after glaring at Naruto, he rushed to his friend's side with smelling salts waking him up. The class silently walked back to the classroom to wait for their teachers so they could finish up the exam. Iruka, what happened? Did I kill the demon? Sorry man, the little shit got you good. I was too surprised to see that he could do that stuff to stop him, but we'll get him. He may know some Bunshin types, but there's no way he can do the academy version. We'll just stipulate that it has to be the academy Bunshin and do it in the back room so he doesn't see the others pass, even if they don't do a perfect one. Mizuki gingerly nodded his head as a dull throbbing sensation coursed through it. I really have to kill that little bastard after he gets me the scroll. Naruto and his classmates just sat there waiting. The rest of the class was talking to each other and eyeing Naruto cautiously. They couldn't believe the dead last had aced the written test, hit the bullseye perfectly in the weapon test, and then knocked out one of their teachers. Even Sasuke had only managed to play second in the written portion behind Sakura, hit 18/20 targets on the weapons test, and last until the timer went off against Mizuki. For Naruto to display the level of intelligence and skill that he has displayed would go against everything the last 4 years would indicate. He wasn't bad except supposedly with jutsu, but he wasn't supposed to be good, at least not this good. I could still take him though, right boy? Akamaru just looked at Kiba and then Naruto and then laid down. Yeah, I know I could, and then I bet the girls would be all over me and forget about that jerk Sasuke. Kiba dissolved into a fit of perverted giggles as people moved away from him slowly. Everything grew quiet as Iruka and Mizuki walked back into the classroom with Mizuki leaning against Iruka for support. Okay everybody, we're almost finished. We will begin to call you one by one into the back room to perform Henge, Kurami, and Bunshin Jutsu. Once you complete the test you will choose a headband if you've passed, and then you are to leave out the classroom door and proceed to the front of the school, where you can leave the grounds or wait for whoever is coming to get you. You are to return tomorrow morning for your team placement. For those of you who don't pass you will be given the option to return next semester and try again or to become a civilian. If your decision is to return you have a week to get in contact with one of us or the principal. Okay, now listen up for your name and come in when you're called. Naruto watched as everyone went and completed the exam. He watched as most seemed to come out with a headband tied somewhere on their bodies as they ran outside to greet family or friends and show off. He actually felt a little sad for the ones that came out with no headband, their heads down looking ashamed as they walked out the door. They would most likely, even if it was only their first failure, give up and become a civilian. Though a few he spied had a look of determination that showed they would be back next year. One way or another I won't be one of them, but I could imagine feeling differently if that incident hadn't happened. Uzumaki, Naruto, it's your turn. Mizuki called, doing his best to hide his disgust, but of course it didn't work as Naruto picked up on it easily. Okay, Naruto replied as he walked into the back room as Mizuki closed the door behind him. Okay Naruto, all you have to do is perform a Henge, Kurami, and finally a regular Bunshin and you're done. Naruto just smiled at both of them before he henged into a perfect henge of Mizuki and then waved at the man before he used Kurami to switch positions with Mizuki and then switched back still in the henge, but to his credit, Mizuki kept his calm and even praised Naruto on his skill. What the hell is going on here? Why is Mizuki praising the demon? Iruka was so lost in thought that he almost missed Naruto's attempt at a Bunshin, but he smiled as he saw it on the ground looking sickly and near death. Sorry Naruto, but you fail. If you can't even perform a simple Bunshin then there is no hope in you being a shinobi. Naruto had to pinch himself to stop the smile that was forming on his face, but inside his head, he was laughing at the two pathetic excuses for shinobi. I can't believe they allowed their hate to cloud their judgment so much. Oh well, I better get out of here. I certainly don't need or want to hear any more from these two. I should probably go out the back way though, as I'm sure there is still a crowd out there waiting to see if the demon passed or not. Naruto was brought out of his thoughts as he heard Mizuki for some reason try and get Iruka to give him another shot. He has something planned, but unfortunately for him I'm not playing along. They already gave me what I want. The two shinobis' argument evolved into a fight and they didn't even notice that Naruto had left until they heard the classroom door close. Before Iruka could even turn back to his friend he was also gone, leaving him completely confused and questioning everything that happened that day. Meanwhile, Mizuki had just caught up with Naruto, who was only a few blocks from his apartment complex. Naruto, wait up! Shouted Mizuki, causing Naruto to turn and stare at the man. What can I help you with, Mizuki-san? Well, I was a little worried you were taking what happened back there hard, but I can see that you seem to be fine. Mizuki for his part was wondering exactly why he wasn't and if this was going to affect his plan. One door closes and another opens, as they say. I think I will go to civilian school and then maybe travel around, as I don't think I'll find what I'm looking for in Konoha. Naruto finished as he watched Mizuki's reaction. The man seemed to be in a mild state of panic, but he couldn't be sure. Damn it, the little demon is messing up all my plans. No, I won't allow this. I deserve everything Orochimaru-sama is going to give me when I hand him that scroll, and this little shit is going to get it for me. Well, that's a very mature way of looking at this, Naruto, but what if I told you there was a second secret test you could take that would allow you to become a genin? I would say I'm listening. It will be a test of stealth, secrecy, and information gathering. All you need to do is steal the forbidden scroll Konoha's scroll of seals from the Hokage's office without anyone seeing you and deliver it to me later tonight in the woods behind the school training grounds. Okay, how long do I have to complete this test? Naruto asked. Until 10 o'clock p.m. After that you fail automatically and you'll never become a ninja. Okay, see you then. Naruto just walked away, missing the evil grin that was plastered on Mizuki's face. Mizuki, however, missed the evil smile that was on Naruto's face as he walked towards the tower. Half an hour later, Naruto was knocking on the Hokage's door after he managed to make his way past the hateful guards, ninjas, and secretaries that worked at the tower. "Come in," he heard as he opened the door and walked in, taking a seat in front of the veteran Hokage. "Oh, hello Naruto, to what do I owe the pleasure of your visit?" The Hokage was surprised with the visit, as it seemed like the blonde wanted to be anywhere but near him these last 4 years. It did save him from having to use on of his Anbu to track him down, so he find out what happened during the test. He had watched the whole thing and right up until he bunched and he fully believed the blonde was going to pass. He had even picked out his team. He thought Naruto liked Sasuke and Sakura as he saw him sitting with them frequently in class when he spied on him. Of course, he overlooked the way the pink-haired girl always seemed to yell at the blonde and tried to hit him, or the way he seemed to be trying to avoid Sasuke. They'll be the perfect team and with time may even become the next Sannin. Actually, I came for 2 reasons. The first is to tell you that the Chunin teacher Mizuki approached me half an hour ago or so about stealing a scroll from your office as a means of passing some secondary test after I failed the graduation exam today. And that is troubling. Are you sure about this, because Mizuki has never once shown any signs of being a traitor? I don't know, that depends on if you think it would be treasonous for me to knock you out right now and take the scroll of sealing so I can deliver it to Mizuki later tonight. I see. Hiruzen took up a thinking pose. I could just send Anbu to find the fool and let that be the end of it, but then there's Naruto to consider. I need him to become a shinobi to both fulfill my promise to his parents and to better protect him from the council and his father's enemies, not to mention these Akatsuki people Jiraiya has been telling me about lately. Naruto, how would you like to help me deal with Mizuki and become a genin as well? I'd say no thank you, Hokage-san. That's good my boy, now let's wait, what did you say? I said no thanks, Hokage-san. Nani? No thanks. Is what I'd like to say, but I had a meeting with the daimyo earlier this week. Sarutobi had calmed down enough to hear this. What? When? Where? Why? How? Sarutobi was truly and completely confused by this. He didn't even think Naruto knew there was a daimyo, let alone talk to the man. I left the village after Chunin Academy teacher Yumino Iruka figured out my little trick with my bunshin technique. The Hokage had to interrupt. When did you learn a bunshin technique and what was this trick of yours? I hope it wasn't another prank, Naruto. It's not a big deal. I found a teacher outside of the academy who was willing to teach the demon brat. Naruto, I know you're frustrated and all, but you have to understand it doesn't matter anyway. When I met the daimyo and told him of my situation, he seemed surprised. He told me that a group of councilmen and your advisors regularly came to see him and that they told him I was being well taken care of. It seems he knew my parents and was giving them extra funding to make sure I was being looked after. Naruto really wanted to laugh as the man turned pale at the implications of all this. Oh, so you know Hokage-san, he is sending a team of investigators and accountants some time during the week to find out what happened with those funds. Now the Hokage was close to fainting, but he wasn't the Hokage for nothing, so he pulled it together. Oh okay, and Naruto, thanks for letting me know. No problem, he wanted me to inform you anyway, because he will also be sending along 2 of his guardian sons. They are coming to Konoha to become ninja and learn more about Konoha and the world of shinobi. It was his solution to a problem I shared I might have, since he practically ordered me to become one as well. Naruto had the Hokage's full attention now. What problem would that be, Naruto-kun? I really hope it's something I can help with, as Naruto really does deserve to find a little happiness. The fact that I don't trust a single person in this village to not kill me when they find an opportunity, let alone expect them to have my back on missions. His solution was these 2 boys who have been training since they could walk and really wanted to be ninja. He said they were a little older than me and already have undergone their elemental and weapons training. They haven't unlocked their second element yet, but they have mastered one according to their fathers. Well, that's to be expected, Naruto. Most of our ninja don't even begin to learn to control an element until they make Chunin. So it's quite a feat that they already have mastered one, and I'm sure they'll make a fine addition to the village. Said the old man, giving Naruto his best smile. And so if I told him I can control 7 elements and I'm working towards using 2 or 3 more, he'd probably force me into Anbu or something. I better keep quiet about the full extent of my abilities for now. I'm sorry, Hokage-san, but it seems I wasn't clear. Technically they nor I will be ninjas for this village. We will wear the headband and swear loyalty to the daimyo and you, but in 3 years' time we will quit. The contract I signed with the daimyo for my freedom runs for 3 years and then my 2 teammates will return to the capital and I will be allowed to either reside safely in Fire Country or given safe passage to any other country I wish to live in. Of course there is also the chance I may stay and continue on, but I wouldn't count on it. The Hokage was beginning to swear a bit. Contract? He signed a contract with the daimyo? I can't do anything but nod my head thanks to those stupid annoying idiots on the council. Sarutobi took a deep breath to clear his mind a little. Fine, just let me see the contract and sign it if need be. Naruto just handed it over to him and watched as he read seemingly deep in thought. After a few minutes the document was signed and he called in his secretary. Yes, Hokage-sama, you called for me. The woman looked over at Naruto and sneered at him. Naruto just ignored the woman as he was used to this. It seemed no matter how many secretaries the man went through, they all seemed to share one common trait, an unabashed hatred for him. Ah yes. I would like it if you would take this contract and make a few copies please. As you wish, Lord Hokage. Nothing was said until she was out the door and the lock clicked back in place. In the contract I saw where the daimyo has stated you are to be given access to Jounin level material. Yes, Hokage-san. It was what I wanted out of this deal, so that my growth won't be stunted and prevent me from being strong enough to protect myself in the future. However, there is a limit to the number of techniques I can learn per month unless given permission by you. The Hokage just nodded and went on to his next issue. I read that as well, but you will have to be accompanied by either your sensei or me, okay? It's not that I don't trust you, but there are some things better left unknown. Naruto just nodded as there were ways around that if the arrangement didn't meet his needs. Okay, moving on, it states here the daimyo expects me to give you money to buy out the apartment complex you live at and do some renovations. Yes. After he heard the conditions I have been forced to live with since I was 4, he was particularly angry as the council told him I was living in a house with adopted parents who loved me. The Hokage once again paled at the treachery displayed by the council. Those greedy idiots never bothered to think one simple unplanned visit by the boy would send their plans and this village into chaos thanks to their lies. I'm really sorry, Naruto. I really did try to make that lie a reality, but it doesn't matter anymore. Anyway, he expects you to buy my current landlord out at market value for the property and no more than give me adequate money and tools to do the renovations on my own. Naruto, that's an impossible task to let you do on your own. It will be difficult, but once again I don't trust anyone here to help me, so it will have to be done this way. Oh Naruto, I'm such a fool for letting you get this way. You should be able to trust that not everyone is out to get you. Okay, well, I've already signed off on this, so I will go along with this, but if you need any help please let me know. He didn't even get a nod in reply from this. Okay, about the part that talks about your ability to defend yourself. I see there are penalties for attacks on you or your property. Yes. The daimyo, after hearing about some of the things that happened to me, decided if law wasn't enough of a deterrent then they would pay monetarily. I get that, but it doesn't say what happens if they can't pay. Oh, it does in fine print. If they can't pay then I get any possessions of theirs that are equal to the amount owed. It also states they are responsible for anything of mine they damage or break in the attack. Okay, but I expect you to remember you're a ninja now, Naruto, and you can't go around beating up civilians no matter what they say or do. The daimyo gave me permission to protect myself, but I will do my best to avoid confrontations and fights. Besides, the daimyo also had your worry, so he made me promise to not use lethal force unless it was unavoidable. I mean, even the strongest warrior can be taken down by the weakest civilian if the timing is right or the numbers too great. The Hokage could only nod in agreement as his words rang with a wisdom that belied his age. Okay Naruto, just do your best, okay? Finally, this last part about your inheritance. Does this mean you know about your parents? Yes. The daimyo was kind enough to tell me their names and what he knew of them and their wishes for me. However, he was unable to tell me if my mother was still alive or not and if they left me anything. The Hokage took a minute to prepare himself for what he knew would come next. Your mother is alive, but I'm afraid she left some time before your first birthday and I don't know where she is. I'm also sorry to say she took almost everything, and what she didn't take the council did. The only thing left for me to give you is a scroll your father left for you. Sarutobi got up and went to a painting on the wall and gently removed it, then set it down. There was a hidden safe, and Naruto watched as the Hokage opened it before grabbing a scroll and quickly closing the safe. He rehung the painting and then gave the scroll to Naruto as he again took his seat behind his desk. He waited a few minutes to see if Naruto was going to read it now, but all he did was drop it in a pocket. That leaves a request from me, Hokage-san, that wasn't in the agreement. Oh, what might that be? He probably wants money for past attacks. Sarutobi thought with a sigh at how much all this was going to cost him and the village. This wasn't added to the agreement because the daimyo wanted me to hold off until I got the right information from you, but your answer of what happened with my mother tells me I'm doing the right thing. He now had his full attention. I no longer want to be known as Naruto Uzumaki. Instead I just want to be Naruto until such time as I find the right last name or get married, in which case I will take my wife's last name. The Hokage could only nod, wanting to get this over with before anything else came up. So now that we got that out of the way and you are now a genin of the leaf, I am giving you your first mission. He received another nod. I really wish the old Naruto would come back. This Naruto is very unsettling. Finishing his thought, he started up again. You are to fake the theft of the scroll of sealing and meet Mizuki. You will discover his motives for this action and apprehend him. If you are unable to, a team of Anbu will be waiting in hiding and help you finish the mission. When you have him and the scroll secured, we will come out and take over from there. Any questions, Naruto? Will I be using the real scroll or are you going to give me a fake to deceive Mizuki with? The Hokage went into deep thought for a moment. I really should give him a fake, but giving him the real thing would show my trust in Naruto. Plus, if Mizuki detects it's fake, it will put him in an even more dangerous situation. I believe I can trust you, Naruto-kun, so I will let you steal the scroll. I hope you realize the level of trust I'm putting in you. Now give me a few minutes and then take the scroll. One of my Anbu will follow you and then more will be on their way. Naruto nodded and watched as the old man gathered up some paper and made his way to the door before he stopped and turned to face him. I know it may not seem like it, Naruto, but there are people in this village, including me, who care a great deal for you. Please think about that and be careful. After saying that, he left and went to engage his secretary in meaningless chatter for a few minutes, giving Naruto the time he needed. When he returned, he found a scroll sitting on his desk with a note attached to it and an empty office. Sarutobi read it out loud. This is for me as much as you and those who follow you in leading this village. The daimyo thought this would solve a lot of problems. Consider this the first payment for me still being here. The Hokage unfurled the scroll and began to read. As he continued, a smile began to grow until it shone like the sun. I owe that boy more than I can ever repay him. I really hope that he will reconsider this agreement and be the hero this village needs. Now if only he could help me find a way to deal with all this paperwork. The old man just sighed tiredly and started to go through the stack of papers on his desk once more. It had been a few hours since Naruto left the old man's office with the scroll of sealing, and he still had an hour before 10 o'clock rolled around. He looked up at the sky to see the moon in all its beauty as it provided the light for his clones as they went over the techniques that interested him. The scroll contained mostly sealing techniques, but he found some supplementary clone techniques and a few elementals that would take a while to learn even with the shadow clones, but could be trump cards against stronger opponents. The clone Great Explosion technique, the Shuriken Shadow Clone technique, Water Release, Great Waterfall technique, Earth Release, Swamp of the Underworld, and the Lightning Release armor. Naruto had no idea how Konoha got their hands on another Kage's technique. Maybe it was exchanged in the peace treaty over the Hyuga incident. Either way, he figured he got his hands on a very powerful technique that if he could master would give him an edge in battle. I'll have to be careful though, as I can't just use it anytime I want or it might cause problems for me. Maybe I could modify it and use my clones to see if it'll work with other elements. Naruto's thoughts were interrupted though as he felt a couple of chakra sources coming towards him that were at least mid to high level chunin. However, it worried him a bit when he noticed the second was lagging a couple of minutes behind the first one. As he pondered on who they could be, he instructed his clones to go further into the forest and keep working on the techniques until they were out of energy. Remembering the level of the techniques, he created 50 more clones and sent them with the others. Perhaps I should have wrote some of those techniques down on a blank scroll, as it will take a while to master them. Thinking it was the best course of action, he created one more clone and sent it with the scroll a little ways away so it could copy the techniques and then leave the original while taking the copy to his apartment and hide it before dispersing. It was also ordered to double-check the entire scroll and see if there may have been a technique or two he overlooked and copy them as well. Just as the clone got situated in its hiding spot and began to copy the techniques and what was said about them, one of the chakra sources came out to confront Naruto, while the other hung back, making Naruto even more on edge. Naruto Uzumaki. What have you done? Naruto just looked at the man for a minute as he was breathing hard from his outburst. Ah no, but didn't Mizuki-san tell you? The Chunin adopted a confused look and stared at the young Jinchuriki. Tell me what? That I chose to do the secret second exam and steal the forbidden scroll while learning one jutsu from it before handing it over to him. Now alarm bells were going off in Iruka's head. Kami, I let him use my hate to harm a mere child who's done nothing to me. Dropping his head a little in shame, Iruka quickly got over it, remembering who told him Naruto stole the scroll. Naruto, listen to me, where is the scroll? Iruka asked, looking at Naruto and the surrounding area so they could take it and get to the Hokage tower quickly before something bad happened. Yes, Naruto, where is the scroll? Both men turned to find Mizuki looking at them with a smirk on his face. Iruka was internally panicking at the situation now that he realized what was going on and the role his best friend likely picked for him to play. I'm either going to be the so-called victim of the demon brat or the unwitting hero accomplice as Mizuki gets away with the scroll and betrays Konoha worse than this boy could ever do. His thoughts were broken as Naruto spoke in a calm, almost reassuring voice. It's somewhere safe, Mizuki-san, but first, don't you want to see that technique you asked me to learn? Now it was Mizuki's turn to panic. Damn, now I have to kill Iruka thanks to that fucking brat. Then a twisted smile was displayed on his lips. Of course I was planning to anyway, just not this soon, but it could work out better for me. After all, while I believe my old friend is a fool, I doubt he's a big enough fool to believe I had nothing to do with this now. No, Naruto, there isn't enough time right now, but if you hand over the scroll now, I'll hand you your hit at 8 in the morning when you and the other kids come to hear about whose team you're on and your sensei. Mizuki tried to give his best smile. Damn, the little brat is making this hard. Naruto, don't. Iruka was stopped though as Naruto held a hand up towards the man. Well, Mizuki-san, that does sound good except for the fact I've already been a genin of Konohagakure for the past 2 hours. Mizuki had had enough. Listen here, you little demon shit. You will give me the scroll and then die like a good little monster, okay? Mizuki's creepy smile only emphasized what he just said. Naruto just looked at the man without any expression. What you doing this for? Because your hate seems to be a little misdirected to me. Do you wanna know why? Fine, I'll tell you. 12 years ago the Yondium Hokage did not defeat the QB like you were told. Mizuki, no, don't tell him. It's against the law. Naruto still stood impassively while Mizuki had a calculating look on his face as he gave his creepy smile. It's a little late for that, Iruka, besides I know you hate the little demon as much if not more than almost anyone in the village. Iruka could only hang his head in shame at the statement but quickly looked up, leveling a glare at his former friend. You're right, I have done some terrible things to a child who deserved none of it, but Mizuki, on all our years of friendship, please, I'm begging you, don't tell him. If you stop right now, I'm sure the Hokage will forgive you and maybe even let you continue to be a shinobi. Mizuki only scoffed at the man and began to reach for his windmill shuriken. Like I would ever bow down to that old monkey. I found a village and a Kage with greater power and ambitions than that washed up old fossil. He can't be that powerful, he needs you to do his dirty work. Shut up, demon. Orochimaru-sama has promised me power, status and wealth as long as I get the scroll for him. Now I'm tired of waiting. Tell me where the scroll is and maybe you'll leave here alive. Naruto just gave the man a smirk. Oh, but if I did that then I would fail my very first mission. You wouldn't want that, would you, Mizuki team? I wouldn't be so confident, demon. Remember what I was saying before. Everyone's lied to you, the demon didn't die. The Yondium sealed it into you, making you the demon. Now died demon. Mizuki grabbed his shuriken and threw it as hard as he could at Naruto. Seeing this, Iruka tried to get in front of the blonde boy and take the hit but was tripped and fell to the ground. He heard a weird sound almost like clanging metal, and when he looked up there stood Naruto, a katana in his hand thrust upward and what looked to be 2 pieces of a sliced up windmill shuriken laying on the ground near him. You're really going to have to do better than that, Mizuki-san, if you expect to defeat me. Naruto said with a smirk as he lowered his arm. What the hell? When did he learn Kenjutsu? Both men thought, but Mizuki shrugged it off and threw a second shuriken, only for it to receive the same fate. Iruka just moved to the side, not really knowing what to do anymore. A part of him wanted to help Naruto and find a way to make up some of what he's done to him, but a small part of him still saw him as the demon that killed his family, so he just settled for staying out of the way for now. Besides, it doesn't look like the little gaki needs my help anyway. I guess he was doing more than skipping and pranking when he was using those clones. Sighing, he took his mind away from his thoughts and watched the continuing battle. Fine, if that don't work then how about this? Naruto watched as he saw him start to do hand seals as he started drawing in air to his lungs before calling out. Kaiten, Kakakyu no Jutsu, as a flame that turns into a giant fireball comes out of his mouth and through the ring his fingers made. Naruto smiled as he did an ninjutsu of his own without calling out Doten, Dachu Ijo no Jutsu, and went underground waiting for the fireball to pass. Mizuki smiled when the fireball dissipated and the brat was nowhere in sight. Ha, too easy. Then he frowned. Damn, now I have no way of finding the scroll before those idiots in Anbu find me. Turning to see his friend stare at the scorched earth in shock, he addressed him. I'd like to let you live, Iruka, but the truth is I've always hated you, and since you're the only witness to what went on here, I can't let you leave. Look on the bright side though. When everyone finds out what happened here, you'll be seen as a hero who died killing the demon brat and finished what Yondium-sama started. Mizuki started to do more hand seals to finish the job and get out of Konoha quickly, but stopped as the ground near the scorched area shook a bit and then something yellow popped out of the ground, followed by a head and then a torso, and finally he was staring into the blue eyes of Uzumaki Naruto. Sorry Mizuki-san, it won't be that easy, but now I have to put an end to this as I can't show everything I've been working on yet. Mizuki tried to do the hand seals again, but Naruto flashed through his first, beating him to it as he calls out Futen. Diatapa as the wind around the blonde suddenly explodes out, hitting Mizuki dead on and pushing him into a tree, knocking him out. Moving quickly, Naruto takes a ninja wire and ties Mizuki up, then signals for the Anbu, who quickly come down, scooping Mizuki up, quickly taking him to Ibiki. It was just Naruto and Iruka now in the clearing. Iruka was slightly in shock about that happened since the test began. He didn't know what to think about himself after reviewing all the hateful things he had done under the guise of revenging his family. Then he looked to the boy he once hated and watched as he went behind a tree and retrieved the scroll of sealing. How can he be such a good kid in spite of the many evil deeds done to him by people like me and that council? If he ever did seek revenge, it would rightfully be his to seek. He stopped his thoughts when he noticed Naruto was leaving without so much as a glance towards him, so he called out to him. Naruto, could you wait a moment as I would like to talk to you? Naruto stopped and turned to look at his former instructor. Iruka sighed as he realized Naruto wasn't going to say anything. I would like to say I'm sorry before he could get any further, though Naruto interrupted him. I thank you for your apology, but it is wasted on me. I do not forgive you or anyone in this village, including the Hokage, for what has been done to me. However, I do not seek revenge. I just want to be left alone. Why? Why what? Why don't you seek revenge? Surely if any of us were in your position we would have a long time ago. Well, that is one thing I'm proud of, and that's not being like any of you. Hate only begets more hate, and violence only brings more violence. I am by no means a pacifist, as I will kill when it is necessary, but I will not bloody my hands for this village. Anyways, I got to go give this back and get ready for team assignments tomorrow, so I'll see you then. Naruto turned to leave, but was stopped once again as the Chunin ran up to the young blonde. How about as a further means of apology you allow me to buy you dinner? No thanks. I only eat with those I trust. Naruto didn't even wait to see the look of shame, followed by one of shock on the Chunin's face as he shooshined to the tower. Naruto shooshined right to the front of the tower. He quickly made his way through and up to the Hokage's office. He managed to avoid most of the people who tried to keep him away from the Hokage and only had to deal with one annoyance. Finally making his way up to the door, he just ignored the secretary and knocked on the door. Hearing enter, Naruto opened the door and made his way inside. The Hokage looked up from his paper and smiled. Naruto, glad to see you are alive and unharmed. I take it things went well then? Yes. I didn't learn everything, but I'm sure Ibiki or his assistant will get it out of him. The Hokage took note of the tone he used for Anko and sighed. I guess he's serious about having nothing to do with her. Too bad, she would have been perfect to oversee his team and it would have helped her as well. I'm sure they will. Ibiki is quite talented and well known for his style of interrogation. I've heard. Anyway, I did learn why he wanted the scroll. At this the Hokage perked up a bit. Oh, why's that? He said Orochimaru promised him things and then he said some disparaging things about the village and you. He also said that Orochimaru was recruiting him to join his village, though he didn't name it. This is serious information indeed, Naruto. I want to congratulate you on a job well done and hand you your pay personally. The Hokage gave Naruto an envelope with 200,000 ryu. This will be documented as a solo B rank as your pay reflects. I would make it S rank, but I don't think Mizuki is worthy of that distinction. Naruto just nodded and pocketed the money. Okay, now I want you to know the landlord issue has already been dealt with and the money for the renovations will be given to you when you are ready. Naruto just nodded again. There is one last thing, Naruto. The council somehow at this he looked around at the hidden Anbu wondering who it was, but thought better of it. No, it was most likely that damn secretary. No matter how many I fire, they all seem to be plants of that damnable council. Anyway, they somehow found out about your time away and have called a meeting that will commence in a few minutes. I would like you to accompany me. At this both men shared a grin that promised a lot of pain and possibly death to someone. Sure, if you let me carry out the daimyo's second order on that scroll I left you. Sarutobi continued to smile. Sorry Naruto, but that is something I've been waiting to do for decades now. Fine, but I get the others if you deem it necessary. I'm sure something can be arranged, Naruto-kun. Now let's go, we don't want to keep them waiting, do we? After you, Hokage-san. Both just smiled at was about to happen. I think I'll use this to reveal a bit of myself and show those bastards just who they've been messing with. Naruto had to stifle the evil cackle that threatened to come out as they continued to make their way towards council chambers. That's it for today, guys. If you are still watching this video then you must love this video, so please leave a like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.